You ever hit 3 grand in your savings account and feel like you just climbed Mount Everest in heels? Like you're genuinely celebrating with a Target run and some Chipotle because, holy shit, you finally got to $3,000 and it took you 6 actual months of saying no to literally everything that would have made you happy. Meanwhile, your friend texts you that she just hit 30,000 and you're sitting there like, wait, hold on. Weren't we both broke last year splitting French fries at brunch because we couldn't afford our own orders? Okay, so here's what nobody tells you when you're out here trying to become financially stable or whatever. The first $3,000 is genuinely harder than the next $30,000. Like, I'm not being dramatic. It's actually way harder. And it's not because you magically got smarter or because you won the lottery or some rich relative finally remembered you exist. It's because money has this bizarre psychological thing and this math thing happening at the exact same time. And both of them are working against you in the beginning and then mysteriously flip to working for you later. Which is rude, honestly, but also kind of genius once you understand it. Now look, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just someone who thinks about this stuff way too much when I should be doing literally anything else. So obviously, do your own research and all that. But I need you to understand why that first chunk feels like climbing a mountain in flip-flops and why the momentum shifts so hard once you get past it. Because once I figured this out, I stopped feeling like a complete failure every time I checked my bank account. So why does $3,000 feel completely impossible? You're sitting there trying to save maybe $200 a month if you're lucky. Some months it's $100. Some months it's $0 because your car decided to make that horrifying grinding noise and suddenly you're at the mechanic handing over $300 you absolutely did not budget for. You're living paycheck to paycheck, or paycheck to maybe kinda sorta having $20 left over if nothing goes wrong. Every single dollar you save feels like you're physically holding on to it with your teeth, while life is actively trying to rip it away from you. And here's the psychological part that actually makes me want to scream. When you only have $300 saved, that money is doing absolutely nothing for you. It's just sitting there existing. If you're lucky and you stuck it in a high-yield savings account, maybe you're making like $1 in interest. $1. You could find more than that in your winter coat pocket. So there's zero reward happening. You're grinding. You're sacrificing the girls' trip. You're saying no to the boots that would actually make you feel cute. You're packing sad desk lunches like a responsible adult. And the universe is giving you absolutely nothing back, except watching that number get slightly bigger at a pace that makes you question if time is even real. Plus, and this is the part that actually gets me heated, when you're at the beginning, you're also dealing with all the life stuff that actively destroys savings. You don't have an emergency fund yet because you're literally trying to build the emergency fund. So when your laptop dies, or your tooth cracks, or your best friend gets engaged and the bachelorette party is in Nashville, that's coming straight out of your $300. You're back to zero. You're starting over constantly. It's like trying to fill a bucket that has a hole in it, except the hole is called being a regular person who exists in the world and occasionally needs things. Your income probably isn't that high yet either, if you're in your 20s or early 30s. You're not at peak earning years. You're still climbing the corporate ladder, or figuring out your whole career situation, or still dealing with student loans or credit card debt from that year you thought you could afford to live alone in a one-bedroom. The amount you can even put towards savings is limited because your paycheck is already completely spoken for before it even hits your account. But then something legitimately wild happens once you get past that first painful chunk. Once you hit $5,000, then $10,000, then $15,000, it suddenly starts moving faster. Not because you're magically saving more necessarily, but because the money itself starts helping you save. Which sounds fake, but it's just math. Let me break this down, because this is where it actually gets kind of beautiful in a nerdy way. Let's say you finally grinded your way to $10,000, and you have it in a savings account earning 4% interest. That's $400 a year that you did absolutely nothing to earn. That's $33 a month showing up just because your money existed in a place. Now, I know $33 doesn't sound like life-changing money, but remember when you were scraping together $200 a month to save? That $400 a year is doing 16% of your savings work for you automatically. You're literally getting paid to already have money, which feels unfair when you're starting out, but becomes your best friend once you get there. And it compounds. Everyone throws that word around like we're all supposed to know what it means. But here's what it actually means when you're just trying to keep your lights on. Compounding means the interest you earned last month starts earning interest this month. You're not just earning interest on your original $10,000, you're earning interest on $10,000 plus the $33 from last month. And then next month, you're earning interest on that new total. And it keeps stacking on itself like the world's most boring, but also most helpful snowball. By the time you hit $30,000 in savings earning 4%, that's $1,200 a year in interest, $100 a month. You are getting paid to have money, which I know sounds like rich people problems, but it's actually just math that finally starts working once you get enough in there. That $100 a month means if you were saving $200 a month before, you're now effectively saving $300 a month without changing a single thing about your budget or your life. Your money is doing some of the work. There's also this psychological shift that happens that I don't think people talk about enough, probably because it sounds obnoxious when you're broke. Once you have a real chunk of savings, you stop living in constant panic mode. You stop making expensive decisions out of pure desperation. Like when your car makes that noise and you have $15,000 saved, you can take it to the good mechanic and get it actually fixed, instead of going to the sketchy cheap place that's going to patch it temporarily, and then it breaks again in 3 months and costs you double in the long run. You can buy the decent quality winter coat that lasts 5 years, instead of the cheap one from Forever 21 that falls apart by February, and then you gotta buy another one next year. Having money saves you money, which is genuinely the most annoying truth about being broke. When you're broke, everything costs more because you can't afford the upfront cost of the better option. You're paying overdraft fees. You're paying interest on credit cards. You're paying late fees because you had to choose between paying rent on time or paying the electric bill on time. You're buying the tiny bottle of detergent instead of the big one because you don't have the $20 for the big one right now, even though it's cheaper per ounce. And you know this, you're not stupid. You just don't have $20. Being poor is expensive as hell, and it's designed that way, which is a whole other rant. But once you have that cushion, you stop bleeding money on all the little financial cuts that happen when you're living on the edge. Your emergency fund handles the actual emergencies instead of your credit card at 23% interest. You can wait for a sale instead of buying something the second you desperately need it. You can negotiate better on stuff because you're not desperate. Your whole financial life gets less chaotic, which means less money wasted on crisis management, which means more money saved, which means the gap between where you are and where you want to be closes faster and faster. And here's the part that honestly made me feel some type of way when I realized it. The difference between $3,000 and $30,000 is not 10 times the effort. It's not even 10 times the time if you're doing it right. Because of everything we just talked about, the interest, the compounding, the psychological shift, the reduced expenses from not constantly being in crisis mode, the momentum builds on itself. The second $10,000 comes faster than the first $10,000. The third $10,000 comes faster than the second. It's not linear, it's exponential, which is a fancy way of saying it speeds up. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's easier than the beginning, which is the thing I desperately wish someone had told me when I was sitting at $900 in savings, feeling like I was never going to get anywhere, and maybe I should just give up and buy the expensive purse. I wish someone had said, "Hey, you're in the hardest part right now. You're pushing a boulder uphill, and it sucks, and it's slow, and you're exhausted, and it feels pointless. But once you get it over the hill, gravity starts helping you instead of fighting you." So if you're sitting there right now with $1,000 or $2,000 or even just $500 saved, and you're wondering if you're ever going to get to the point where money feels less stressful, I need you to actually hear this. You are doing the hardest work right now. Every dollar you save in this phase is worth more than the dollars you'll save later, because you are building the foundation that everything else grows from. You are creating the momentum. You are teaching yourself the habits. You are proving to yourself that you can do this even when it feels completely impossible and everyone around you is going out and having fun, and you're eating rice and beans for the 4th night in a row. The goal is not to get to 3,000 and stop and throw a party and then go back to your old habits. The goal is to get to 3,000 and keep going, because 3,000 is where it starts getting easier. 5,000 is easier than 3,000. 10,000 is easier than 5,000. 30,000 is easier than 10,000. Not because you suddenly got a huge raise, though hopefully your income grows as your career progresses, but because the math finally starts working with you instead of against you. So keep going. The beginning is brutal, and it's supposed to be, and it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. But the beginning doesn't last forever. You're building something that's going to carry you. And one day, you're going to look at your account and realize you're not grinding anymore. You're actually coasting. And that feeling is worth every single sacrifice you made when it felt impossible and stupid, and like maybe personal finance is a scam invented by people who already have money. It's not. It just sucks at first. But it gets better. I promise it gets better.